The Galactic Senate chamber pulsed with tension, its vaulted ceiling glowing with shifting, the unease spreading across the galaxy. Delegates murmured among themselves, their voices carrying a mixture of arrogance, curiosity, and concealed fear. In the center of the chamber stood the High Chancellor of the Galactic Empire, draped in obsidian robes woven with metallic threads that shimmered like cold steel. He spoke with the full authority of a realm that had dominated worlds for centuries, and his proclamation echoed like thunder across the thousand systems tuned into the broadcast. Earth has refused submission. Earth has insulted our sovereignty. And today, the Empire declares war upon humanity. The words crashed through the hall and rippled outward, through countless sectors. Screens across the galaxy displayed the Chancellor's stern expression, confident in the Empire's inevitable triumph. Planets under Imperial rule watched in resignation, already familiar with the ruthless efficiency of Imperial campaigns. But among the billions witnessing this spectacle, one figure remained strikingly composed. Ambassador Lyra Hale, Earth's young representative, stood near the center of the delegate circle. She was neither tall nor imposing, yet something about her effortlessly commanded attention. Her calm posture contrasted sharply with the Empire's theatrics. Her eyes, clear and unblinking, revealed not fear but a quiet acceptance, as though she had anticipated this moment long before the Chancellor uttered his declaration. The senators nearest her exchanged confused glances, unable to reconcile her serenity with the gravity of the situation. Humanity's reputation throughout the galaxy was still that of a small, inexperienced civilization. Earth possessed modest technology, few alliances, and no significant military force. Yet Lyra's stillness carried an inexplicable weight, as if she held knowledge they did not. She stepped forward. The subtle sound of her shoes, touching the polished floor, echoed more loudly than expected, drawing even the most distracted delegates to attention. Though she rarely raised her voice, her words always carried a certain precision, sharp, intentional, unyielding. "High Chancellor," she began, her tone respectful yet resolute. "You believe war will silence Earth. You assume humanity will bow because fear has governed your rule for generations. But you misunderstand who we are." A faint tremor passed through the room as her voice, though calm, pressed into the air with a disarming certainty. She wasn't boasting. She wasn't challenging. She was simply stating truth. We are a people shaped not by conquest, but by endurance. Threats do not subdue us. Pressure does not break us. When cornered, humanity does not surrender. We evolve. The Chancellor's expression tightened. Her confidence was not the response he expected. He leaned forward, his voice razor-sharp. "You speak boldly for a species so insignificant." Lyra's eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger but in resolve. Insignificant species do not survive extinction-level events. They do not rise from ashes of their own making. They do not stand here today unshaken by your threats. The chamber darkened as her words settled. For the first time, the Empire's unwavering certainty felt fractured. Delegates began to feel something dangerously close to doubt. Yet Lyra wasn't finished. "You declare war because you believe Earth is alone," she continued. "But you fail to understand that unity is born from adversity. Humanity stands ready, not for domination, but for justice." The Chancellor opened his mouth to retort, but something in Lyra's unwavering gaze held him silent. The atmosphere tightened, as though the entire chamber paused to inhale. Then Lyra allowed a small, knowing smile to form, soft, controlled, deliberate. "If war is the path you insist on," she said, "then it is finally time." Her words didn't erupt like a battle cry. They landed with deeper force, like the quiet beginning of a storm no one had seen coming. And as the silence stretched, it became clear to all that the conflict had already begun. The shock that rippled through the Senate did not dissipate after Lyra's final words. Instead, it tightened into a palpable tension that weighed on every delegate present. The High Chancellor tried to regain control of the moment, but his authority no longer felt absolute. His declaration of war, meant to intimidate, had instead exposed an unexpected truth. Earth's representative was not afraid. That alone unsettled him more than he was willing to admit. Yet beneath the spectacle, a deeper struggle unfolded within Lyra herself. Her calm exterior hid a storm of calculation. She knew every sentence she had spoken set events into motion that could not be undone. Humanity had been preparing for this inevitability, but preparation did not erase the cost. Every life lost, every world shaken would haunt her. Even so, she maintained her composure, because fear, if shown now, would shatter the fragile courage Earth had gathered. The Chancellor cleared his throat and straightened his shoulders, attempting to reassert dominance. Your confidence is misplaced, Ambassador. Earth's spirit cannot substitute for strength. His words were sharp, but they carried an undertone of caution. Lyra met his stare without hesitation. Strength without purpose collapses. Purpose without compassion corrupts. You built an empire on fear. We built our unity on resilience. Her reply struck deeper than he expected. Around them, several delegates shifted uncomfortably, their loyalty thinning as they watched the dynamics unfold. The Empire had never tolerated resistance. Yet here, a single human was defying its authority without raising her voice. One senator leaned toward another and whispered, "She speaks as if she holds an unseen advantage." The second replied, "Or she hides a desperation she refuses to reveal." Their interpretations didn't matter. What mattered was that, for the first time, the Chancellor felt eyes drifting, away from him and toward the young diplomat. He had intended to belittle. He gestured to the holographic map hovering above the chamber. Your world sits at the galaxy's edge. One swift strike could erase humanity in a day. The projection zoomed, displaying Earth as a small blue dot surrounded by Imperial territory. The image was meant to mock the fragility of her home, but instead, it amplified the growing divide between the Empire's pride and its blind spots. Lyra continued studying the map, her expression unreadable. "You see isolation," she said quietly. "But isolation creates clarity. Distance creates independence. And hardship creates resolve," the Chancellor scoffed. Yet a subtle crease appeared between his brows. Lyra's confidence was too controlled to be reckless. She wasn't bluffing, and he sensed it. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "What are you hiding, human?" Lyra did not step back. "Not a weapon," she answered. "A truth." Her voice softened, but her gaze sharpened. "Your empire believes it understands the galaxy, but you have never understood humanity, our boundless capacity to endure, to adapt, and to rise from ruin, stronger than before." Her words resonated across the chamber like a quiet warning. A few senators leaned forward, drawn to her conviction despite themselves. The Chancellor clenched his jaw, realizing he was losing control of the narrative. "Your speeches will not spare your world," he growled. "War is already upon you." "Perhaps," Lyra admitted. "But war reveals character, and character decides who survives." The lights above flickered briefly, drawing attention upward. It was nothing more than a minor fluctuation in the Senate's aging systems, but it punctuated her final sentence with eerie timing. Lyra did not look away. Her eyes held steady, unwavering, carrying the weight of a world preparing to face the unimaginable. The Chancellor straightened, masking the faint tremor in his composure. "Then we will see whose resolve endures." Lyra gave a slow nod, accepting the challenge without speaking another word. And in that stretched silence, every delegate felt the shift. The war had not yet begun, but the balance of power had already started to move. The Chancellor's composure unraveled further as the chamber grew quieter, the silence turning into an unspoken accusation that he no longer commanded the room as he once did. Delegates who had always sat with rigid loyalty now observed him with wary eyes, as though evaluating the stability of the very empire that had ruled them for generations. Lyra sensed the shift, but did not allow herself the luxury of relief. Every word she spoke had been calculated, yet the reaction she provoked carried its own risks. Confidence could quickly become danger if misread. She needed the Chancellor to doubt his own footing, not lash out recklessly. He paced a few steps, his cloak sweeping behind him like a frustrated shadow. "You presume too much faith in humanity," he said, forcing steadiness into his tone. "Courage is admirable, but courage alone cannot halt an empire," Lyra responded without raising her voice. Empires fall when they mistake fear for obedience. The Chancellor stopped pacing, turning sharply toward her. You claim your people are ready for war, yet Earth stands alone. She did not blink. Alone is a temporary condition. Oppression creates alliances faster than diplomacy ever could. A murmur stirred among the delegates, not loud enough to challenge the Chancellor, but strong enough to show that Lyra's words were settling into places they were not meant to go. She observed their subtle reactions, the way some leaned closer with curiosity, how others sat stiffly as if afraid to be seen agreeing. The Empire's confidence was cracking, one quiet fracture at a time. The Chancellor lifted his hand, and the room shifted as a holographic display flickered to life. It showed Imperial fleets mobilizing, thousands of ships emerging from orbiting docks with cold precision. The sight was meant to intimidate, and even Lyra's pulse tightened at the overwhelming scale of force. This is the entirety of Earth's future, he declared. A single order, and your world is erased. Lyra studied the projection, letting the enormity of it press against her thoughts. She did not allow fear to surface. Instead, she focused on the Chancellor's intention. He wanted her silent. He wanted humanity silent. But fear had never been an effective leash on her kind. You believe destruction defines power, she said. But the galaxy has seen enough destruction. What it has rarely seen is hope. He stared at her, puzzled by her calmness. Hope will not shield your planet. Perhaps not, she answered. But hope inspires action, and action inspires change, even in places ruled by fear. A flicker of uncertainty crossed his face. Too quick for most to catch, but not too quick for Lyra. The more she spoke, the more his conviction thinned. He wasn't worried about Earth, he was worried about the galaxy listening to Earth. The chamber dimmed slightly as the projection shifted again. This time it displayed not Imperial fleets, but smaller clusters of ships scattered across the outer systems. Some bore unfamiliar markings. Some had no markings at all. They were far too insignificant to threaten the Empire, but their presence was undeniable. The Chancellor dismissed them with a wave of his hand. Scavenger vessels, nomad clans, worthless. Lyra's gaze sharpened. Every oppressed world begins as worthless until the moment it decides to stop being afraid. A stillness settled across the hall, thicker than before. Several delegates exchanged glances, each silently questioning how many more worlds might be listening. Waiting, watching for a sign that resistance was possible. The Chancellor tried to regain momentum. These stragglers cannot save you. I never asked them to, Lyra replied. But people who have suffered under your rule will not remain silent when they see a chance for change. You've built your empire on dominance. Humanity builds its strength on connection. He stepped closer, his voice low with frustration. Your words ignite a fire you cannot control. Lyra met his stare with unwavering resolve. Good, fires illuminate the darkness. The Chancellor turned away, but not in victory, only to mask the fear beginning to reach his eyes. For the first time, he understood that humanity was no longer his smallest problem. It was becoming his greatest threat. And Lyra, standing in the center of the chamber with calm determination, knew the real war was no longer about fleets or weapons. It was about the hearts of the oppressed, and those hearts were beginning to awaken.